Yo, what's up, guys? Mike Thomas, aka the Young Trishula here. I am back with Twitch chat once again, continuing our string of one take Andy YouTube videos. We've been up all night making YouTube videos for you guys, and I think this is probably going to be the last one for tonight. So not sure when you guys are going to see this, but it's been a long night for us. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you guys an updated Dragon Link deck profile for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, because during the stream there was a ban list dropped for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel that did affect Dragon Link, and I think probably by the time this video comes out, the ban list will be in effect, or be close to in effect. And what I want to do is I want to go over my top 16 MCS deck list from a little while ago and talk about not only that deck list, but also some of the changes you can make to that deck list with the upcoming format. If you're not aware of what the MCS is, they're basically like YCSs for Master Duel. They're hosted by MBT. And they're really, really cool because you can get some really insane prizing from those events. And by making the top 16, I've qualified to play once again in the $10,000 big MCS championship at the end of season 2. So huge shout outs to MBT for that. They're a lot of fun. It's the best competitive content that you can get for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. So a lot of fun competing in that. So we're going to go and take a look at my deck list and then talk about some of those changes. So I'm going to switch over here, and this is the deck that I played in the MCS. And we're gonna, it's always hard to do deck profiles for Master Duel because I can't sort the deck myself. So I'll just talk about the cards in logical order for me. So we started with 3 Black Metal Dragon, as well as 1 copy of Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon and 1 copy of Red Eyes Black Meteor Dragon. This is probably your best normal summon in the entire Dragon Link deck. It just gets you everything. It's a 1 card plus 3 plus 4 or something like. So it's really, really strong. Using just Black Metal alone, you can make a Seals and search both field spells without doing anything else. So that's just your normal summon, and you'll have 6 cards in hand plus a Seals on board with just 1 card, which is just so crazy. It also puts both a light and dark in your graveyard to fuel both Wyver and Collapse. So you don't even have to feel like you're breaking on Collapse. So really, really crazy good card. So if you're not already playing this in Master Duel, I highly recommend that you consider it. The Meteor Dragon also is a very powerful include, not only because naturally you're going to want to be playing Psy-Frame Gear Gamma in Dragon Link, not only to catch stuff like Max C's in the standby phase to get people who are trying to play around Cash Terror. Maybe you're trying to special summon Ephemeria or something. They might try to maxi you in the standby or draw phase. So just gammaing them there just instantly will win you that duel, as well as Gamma being probably the best hand trap when you go second in the game as well, other than Maxi, of course. So it just has a lot of really natural synergy, which I like. And you can do some really crazy stuff with Meteor Dragon as well. I posted a video on some Meteor Dragon combos for the TCG that would also apply to Master Duel if you're interested in checking those out. They're on the channel, and they're pretty recent uploads, so you can probably find those on there. So definitely recommend playing this card. Moving on from that, we played the 3 copies of Seifert. Again, this is your next best normal summon. Just starter 1 card plays. It's not quite as good as Black Metal because you don't get that extra surge with the Red MD, but it does give you 2 dragons, which is all you need to full combo every opponent you play against. Moving on from there, let's talk about the bestial ratios. I played 1 Magnamut because it has been at 1 since release in Master Duel. We played the 2 Juris Worm and the 1... we played the 2 Sarnier, 1 Juris Worm, as well as 2 Lebellion. Now, the 2 Lebellion thing might be a little bit confusing to some people because they might look at like a TCG Dragon Link deck list or a lot of other pasted Dragon Link deck lists around and say, well, why would I not play 3 of this card? It searches for all my bestials. This card's crazy. And you're right. It is crazy. It's a really good card. But something that you need to think about in Master Duel is that we have access to Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, which is probably one of the best cards in this deck. And because of that, this card is like a free prosperity from your extra deck in looking for lights and darks. And because you're always summoning this card, it makes it far more consistent that you'll either hit the Lubellion or the Saronir, and Saronir can then dump the Lubellion. So it's a little bit more consistent than you would think to get into that Lubellion. So you don't need to max out on it. Like, you don't need to see this card in your opening hand, because you will more than likely find this card during your turn. I think it's exceptionally rare that I don't. So, you know, for that reason, you don't need to max out on it. Also, if you max out on it, you run the risk of walking into Droll and Lockbird, which is a very common card in the Master Duel metagame. So that's the Beastial count. Then for the Rockets, we played the 2 Tracer, 1 Recharger, 1 Absolrator, and 1 Synchron. So Synchron isn't as popular as it used to be. A lot of people tend to be cutting Synchron now, because people are also cutting the Hot Red Dragon. So personally, I don't think it's correct to do that. So I still play the Synchron. I think that Synchron is still very, very powerful, and I think it opens up a ton of lines of play that you would not have access to if you were to cut it. So I have not cut this card, and similarly, I have not cut Hot Red from the extra deck because we are playing it. For the extenders, we play 2 Wyver, 2 Collapse. I'm not a fan of other ratios where, you know, some people might do like 2 Wyver, 1 Collapse, or like 3 Wyver, 1 Collapse. I'm not a fan of that, because you're more often than not, actually, you're going to be, or well, maybe I shouldn't say more often than not, but just as often as you are, you know, chaos spacing for the Wyver Burster, you are safer attributing yourself to search Collapse Serpent. And when you have multiple copies of each baby, you always end up with 2 dragons going through your plays, as well as a baby back into your hand, which gives you a free discard for Dragon Ravine, which is very, very important and can actually make a big difference in some games. And with Master Duel being a best of 1 game, you don't want to, you know, lose a game because it's like, oh, well, I have to pitch my Nibiru out of my hand, or I have to pitch my Ash Blossom out of my hand, only for that to matter on your opponent's next turn. So getting that extra discard is very important. Also, Collapse Serpent isn't a brick like some people seem to think it is, because as we do play the Meteor Dragon, it's very easy to just get this driver in graveyard, turn this on. Same thing with Lubellion and Saronir. You know, these are also banishes. And in some other lists that, you know, some in variations of this list that I've played, we're also often playing Effect Failure. So there's just a lot of times that this card is actually a lot more live than you would think it is. And I just see a lot of people thinking that this card's a brick when it's not. It's very fine to draw. So I think that is all. Oh, and then I guess for the last main deck card I was looking for is the 1 Legionnaire. Chaos Dragon Legionnaire is just kind of your spot removal. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. It's a monster reborn. It's a hand shuffle, and it's a pop 2. Usually you're using the pop 2 effect to just clean up board state in the mid game. But sometimes when you go first, you can, if you high roll, you can just loop a card out of your opponent's hand, which is really, really strong, especially if you get hand trapped once or twice, and just put your opponent on like 2 or 3 cards, and it's like, okay, well, you're not beating my board, especially not with 2 or 3 cards. So this card, very, very powerful, but you would never play more than it. So those are all like the main deck engine monsters. Now for the defensive monsters, like the hand traps, we play the 2 Gamma and Driver. Driver, of course, being the main Garnet of the deck, but it having synergy with both Meteor Dragon and Gamma makes it really, really strong, because now, you know, it's not like you're playing the Garnet for just one part of your deck, you're playing it for 2 independent, powerful cards, which is very, very cool that you get to share that synergy. So Gamma, very strong. Max C, obviously you cannot play less than 3 of this card. If you play less than 3 of this card, something has gone horrifically wrong with your deck. So we play 3 Maxi. Similarly, we play 3 Ash Blossom to counter the Maxis, and also just to hit decks because it's the most generic hand trap in the game. And then we played 1 copy of Nibiru. So the reason I play Nib, even though Nib isn't always the best hand trap in this format because of Pearly existing, is because Nib is not the best hand trap in the game. So because Nib isn't the best hand trap in the game, a lot of people don't respect it, and as a result, they end up not respecting Max C. So if you Max C somebody, and there's not a Nibiru or something in your deck, they will just freely take the challenge and they'll find a way to kill you. And even if you have 25 cards in your hand, it won't matter because you don't have a way to stop them from winning the game. But if you do have that Nibiru in your deck, you have a failsafe where you can eventually draw into it and say, okay, we are going to win the game. On top of that, too, it is a light, so you can find it with Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon. And so something that I'll do a lot is I will mill 5 cards with the Chaos Ruler, and one of two things happens. You're either hitting an extender, like maybe you're hitting into a beastial or something, or a white or a black, but you're also having the chance to hit into something like a Nibiru, and then you are just completely safe. If I'm going first and I have Nibiru in my hand, I know that there's no deck in the game that can possibly kill me, and I will get to turn 3 because you are not breaking a Dragon Link board through a Nibiru going second. So very, very powerful card. I don't think I would cut it. It's just very, very good in Dragons, even if it's not in other decks. And I think that rounds out the defensive cards because we're not playing Valor and we're not playing Imperm in this list. So to continue the conversation about defensive cards, I did decide to bump the deck up to 50 cards in order to squeeze in 2 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust, as well as 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent and 1 copy of Herald of the Abyss. So what this is a package mainly for Pearly. Pearly is kind of a rough matchup for Dragons, or it can be sometimes. So because of that, we wanted to have an out to the X-Pearly Nor, just because that can be a really frustrating card to deal with sometimes if they're a good player. Sometimes if they're, maybe not as experienced, you can play through it and be totally fine. But a really good Pearly player, if they have a X-Pearly Nor on the field and you don't know how to deal with that, or if they know how to deal with you, you might just auto lose that game. So we did want that as a little bit of extra insurance, but also tactics Thrust being able to search for our tactics is really, really nice when we go second, as well as it being able to search for chaos space as well. So just a pretty well-rounded card. Not bad at all, but definitely these are cards that you could potentially cut for other defensive cards in the list, or just cut them completely to reduce the deck size. As for the engine spells, you obviously play 3 Chaos Space, which we can't anymore, as well as the 3 Quick Launch, which has also been hit on this most recent ban list. And then for the remaining defensive cards, we play the 2 Called by the Grave. You might be wondering why I'm not playing Crossout. This deck does kind of lose to Maxi, so you would think that you may as well throw the Crossout in there. I don't really love playing Crossout in this deck, just because it's already kind of a tight list at 50. So, we're a little bit pressed for space, and Crossout really only ever hits Max C because the only other cards that you'd possibly be calling with it are Gamma, Nib, or Ash, and not many people are playing Gamma unless they're playing Dragon Link. Ash Blossom doesn't really do much against your deck in the first place, so you're not really too worried about calling it with Crossout. And you can play through Nib with 90% of your hands. So Crossout doesn't really feel that impactful in Dragons, except for calling the Maxi, and I just wanted to keep the deck concise, so we cut it. But Called By is generic, and it can hit just anything that goes to the graveyard, so we obviously max out on that. And then we have to play our 2 field spells. These are mandatory. You search them off of your Link 1 and your Link 2. And then we play the 1 Branded Regained and the 1 Branded Beast. Some people are starting to cut this in Master Duel now, which is a thing that started in the TCG. I think it was like a European trend, and then it came over to North America, and we've been back and forth on this. I don't think it's ever really correct to cut this card, especially not in a game like Master Duel, where win more cards actually do let you win more. Not to say that Branded Beast is strictly win more card, but some people view it that way, so just to throw that out there, that this card does let you win more games. But the real reason that Beast is there is it's actually a really good tool in the deck for both going first and second, because when you go first, you can set it up with the Druisworm to pop multiple cards and make your board really resilient to any kind of disruption they have, because you're layering those interruptions. You're putting cards on the board, cards in your hand, and cards in your back row. So it makes it really, really tough for a deck that isn't prepared for it to crack it. But not only that, it is you're only out to cards like Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel is not something that you always want to appreciate. So if you're not playing the Beast, you can just lose to Chaos Angel immediately, which is not preferred. And another thing about the card is it's actually really, really good going second, which I don't think a lot of people realize. But maybe we'll talk about that in another video. But this card's actually really, really good going second. People don't really think about that. Then for the extra deck, it's pretty standard for dragons. This is pretty much the standard 15 every dragon should be playing. Is Savage, Chaos Ruler, Hot Red, Baron for the 4 synchros. A lot of people play Chaos Angel. I'm not a fan of that card. I really don't think it's necessary. I think it's like super overkill in this deck. And I also think that with how much gas that you do have in Dragon Link in Master Duel, you're not really wanting to invest 2 monsters into just a big body that sits there that you're probably going to want to make earlier in your turn rather than later. And if you were going to invest those 2 bodies, I'd rather do it into a Baron, because Baron is very, very good going second. So instead we cut the Chaos Angel for Hot Red, because this can come up quite a lot, because sometimes your hand doesn't work out to make Savage nicely, but it can on those same hands work out to make Hot Red really easily. And just making sure that you always can get to like Borland plus a negate, and then like maybe a Seals and or an IP is just so important. So being able to have like multiple layers of interaction is just super nice in this deck. For the Link ones, we played the 1 Guard Dragon Pisty and the 2 Strikers. Striker is probably the best Link one in the deck. It is mandatory that you play multiple of it, because this card is also your follow-up. This is your first Link one, and it's also your follow-up. And I think that's something that's really important to know as a Dragon Link player, is there's an interaction between Striker Dragon and Recharger, where if Striker Dragon destroys a monster that was summoned from the extra deck using its effect to add back Recharger, Recharger can then trigger on the next chain and then monster reborn any dark monster from your graveyard, which is a really, really important thing to keep in mind, because a lot of people won't know that, and they will go through both of their Striker Dragons on their first turn, not giving themselves follow-up, and then not having a play on turn 3. So with that in mind, you can see I'm not playing cards like Delingerous Dragon in my extra deck, because those combos do require you to go through both of your Striker Dragons to do them, and because of that, if you get interrupted, you will just lose all of your follow-up, and that is never a good thing. So you want to play both Striker Dragons, and you usually want to keep one in your extra deck. And the way this deck list combos is you only have to go through one. Then you play the 1 copy of Peratic Seal. Again, you know, similar. You wouldn't want to play 2 of this card, kind of in reverse of Striker Dragon, because the game is not going to last more than like 2 or 3 turns. So you're never going to go into a second copy of this. The only place where a second copy would ever come up is the mirror match. And in the mirror match, both players have the ability to recycle it with Regained and Chaos Space, so I don't think you really need to play multiple. Then the Romulus, this is your standard Link 2 that you're usually going into as your second summon. You have to play this, it searches Dragon Ravine. Then the IP Masquerena. Some people cut this. I don't think you should cut this, because this card comes up very, very often on end boards. As a way to just do something with your bodies if you can't guarantee like a Savage or a Hot Red, because if you're playing through Disruption, you're not going to guarantee yourself that you're always ending on like Seals, Borland, Savage, etc. So being able to have an IP in there, so that sometimes it's just like Seals, Borland, IP, or Borland Savage IP is much better than just ending on like Borland plus a Savage and nothing else. So having that extra little bit of disruption matters a lot in this deck, and you'd be surprised how many games would become losable if you did not have this card. Another thing that this card can do for you as well, just while I'm still talking about it, is it's really good at baiting out people's battle phases. So like if you do get nibbed, it's really easy to just put an IP Masquerena on the field and just let them go to battle phase, let them kill it with no intention of ever using it, and just saying, okay, well, I'm getting to turn 3 now, so we're still playing the game. Then the final link 2 is Dark Charmer. The Dark Charmer Gloomy. This card is super, super, super good for multiple reasons. Not only is it a free Monster Reborn stealing stuff out of your opponent's graveyard, you can steal stuff like opposing Magnamuts, you can steal just any random card out of the opponent's graveyard and use it just as free fodder to go into like a Borland play going second. Just a really, really strong card. But what's really cool about this card in this deck is its search effect comes up all the time. So all of the Charmers have kind of like a secret effect that if they are destroyed by an opponent's card while it's in your possession, you can then search a monster with 1500 or less defense from its like corresponding attribute, right? So if you think about that, that's a lot of cards in this deck. You can search Black Metal, you can search Synchron, you can search Tracer, and you can search Levianeer. So something that you can do very, very often with this card is you can use this card to bait out something like an Imperm by threatening to go into Unicorn, which is also in our extra deck, by trying to steal something out of their grave. They might disrupt you, they might use a disruption there. You can go to battle phase, ram this into something, and then search a Levianeer, and then pop 2 cards on their field. Which opens up so many plays for you. Or if you haven't used your normal summon yet, and you're able to get to the Dark Charmer, you can do the same thing, bait out an Imperm or something, ram it into a monster they have, and then search Black Metal and full combo them in main phase 2. So this card is exceptionally powerful, very, very flexible. Whenever I see people cut this card, I just have to shake my head because this card's one of the best cards in the entire deck. Then for the start of the Link 3s, we play Triple Burst Dragon. Triple Burst is mandatory in Dragon Link. You have to play this to do a lot of your Pisty plays without having to do the old like pyramids where you have Pisty and Striker pointing to each other. You don't want to do that because, as I was talking about before, that wastes a Striker Dragon, which is really, really important to do. So you can instead just play the Triple Burst, and the Triple Burst allows you to open up a ton of plays. It's also generic, so it's one of the ways that you can get Pisty off the board if you're in a weird game state, and it's one of the ways that you can climb with Dark Charmer, because Dark Charmer with a valid target and any level 4 or lower dragon is a Borland, which is a really good thing to know, but you have to be playing with Triple Burst to do that. And with that said, too, Triple Burst also has a lot of like hidden effects that might come up for you. For example, this card is an Omni Negate, which most people do not know, but it is only an Omni Negate during the damage step. So where this comes up a lot is against stuff like Adignister, or against Crusadia Avermax. You can use this to just negate something in the damage step, like you run over a big boss monster and they say, well, I have a graveyard effect now, I'm going to send something from your field, and you say, nope, you're not, I have Triple Burst on the field, I just left this here, or I brought it back with like a red MD or something. So very, very, very cool that this card can help you break boards into some powerful towers type monsters. It has another effect that is a piercer, so it does piercing damage over defense mode monsters, which sometimes can actually come up, because if you're in like a weird game state and you want to try and like lethal your opponent underneath Nibiru, for example, you can just summon this card out and just like pierce over a defense mode monster, and that can come up sometimes, so it's very, very cool. And then it has a third effect that actually doesn't come up. This one never comes up. Is that during your main phase, except the turn it was summoned, you contribute it to target a Link 2 or lower monster in your graveyard, special it, then you can special a level 4 or lower dragon from your hand. So that's like hyper specific. That literally should never come up. But in the like weird universe where it does, it is a way that you can get back into Pisty or Striker. The only place I would ever see this coming up, like if you manage to make this come up, is your opponent attacks like an IP Masquerena or something. Your opponent controls like one monster, they attack an IP Masquerena, and you have like Borland on the field or something, and Borland negates something on the field, summons Recharger, and then Recharger gets back the triple burst. Like in the battle phase, the triple burst then survives because maybe their turn is over, and then the triple burst gets back Pisty, and it puts Pisty into like a zone where it can then bring something back with the Borland. That's the only time that would ever come up, and I don't think that has ever happened for me. I have never seen that happen in all the thousands of games of Dragon Link I've played. But theoretically, it could come up. Then to finish up the extra deck, we play Nightmare Unicorn. This just combos with the IP Masquerena and leads you into the Access Code Talker, which is the main way that you're finding lethal with this deck. Is Access Code Talker just is really easy card to make, and you can make it at 5300 attack, and then combine that with your Chaos Ruler, and that's just an easy 53 plus 30 for 83 damage and like 2 to 3 pops. Very easy way to kill people with this. And then finally, our boss monster, which I do have in the magnificent Royal Rare Borland Dragon. This is just kind of the heart and soul of the deck. It's literally a custom card. It has like 5 effects stapled to it. And you know, this is a card that should probably be on your end board every single game. Personally, I like to put Seals and Borland on the field as much as I can. And that's something that you can do pretty consistently with this deck. But you might need to watch a combo guide for that, and thankfully I do have you covered. So definitely check out the channel for those if you're not sure how to do that. So not really too much to say about Borland. It's like one of the best cards in the game. But anyway, going to the deck. So that was the deck list that I played to get top 16 in the MCS, and kind of my walkthrough of that. Now for like just a little bit remaining that we have in the video, I just want to talk about some of the substitutions and changes you can make now with the ban list. So with the ban list coming out, we obviously have to take out 1 quick launch and 1 chaos space. We're very sad about this. They took these away from us. There's nothing we can really do about it. But it does put us down to 48 cards. That is moving us in the right direction. And something you can also do is, if you don't want to play this thrust package, maybe you don't have it, maybe you're, on a budget or whatever, you can easily just take these cards out. So you can cut those, and now you're suddenly down to 44 cards, which is way more reasonable as a deck count, and actually would end up making this deck more consistent. Even though we've lost 2 of our best consistency cards, just simply by taking out a couple cards and just simply taking out a couple cards from our deck and losing these 2 cards has already made my deck more consistent because we're cutting cards. And another thing to note, just in case you're curious too, is Dragons is not a deck that you typically want to play at 40 cards, because there are a lot of cards you don't want to draw. Like, you don't want to draw this Driver, you don't want to draw Regain, you don't want to draw Beast, you don't want to draw Ravine, you don't want to draw Boot Sector, you don't really want to draw Meteor, you don't really want to draw like Red MD, you don't really want to draw Levianeer. Like, you don't want to draw half the deck. You know what I mean? Like, half the deck are cards that you want to see, but you want to see when you want to see them. So you can easily just make this a 44 card deck. If you want to put in the cross out, you can call it 45, nice and easy. But honestly, you could just run it at 44 and be totally fine. Because I think that with the ban list, Pearly might actually see a little bit less play now that Nor is not guaranteed, and we do not have the E-Pearly Nor yet, the baby Nor. That's kind of the future of the game. So because we don't have that card yet, Pearly might see a little bit less play, and you can actually maybe just ignore it a little bit. Some other things that you can consider too, if you are so inclined, is you could find space for Droll and Lockbird in the main deck. If you wanted to just like throw 3 Drolls in here, you could do that as well. That wouldn't be bad at all. But personally, I think my recommendations moving forward would just be to cut the Thrust package and also to take out the cards that we lost and just run it at 44. And I think this deck list will serve you very, very well if you are so inclined to play it. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I hope that this was helpful for you, and I hope that you will join me in the next video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.